We're live.
We
Hey.
are. Hey.
Hey.
Hey guys, we are
This is a
here
first for
with
me.
our wonderful friend from Pods Like Us, and we're going to turn it over to him because we're actually on the other side of the microphone today. Our little team in the art lab is going to be interviewed by one of our favorite accounts from Twitter, and it was our pleasure to meet him. And take it away.
Thank you very much. So, hello and welcome to Pods Like Us. I'm Martin Quibble, known to my friends as Marv, and this time I am speaking with Doc Eith, Heather, Sarah, and Debbie from Therapy Bites. Hey guys, thanks for speaking with me today.
Hey
Thanks for
Marv,
having
man,
Yes.
us.
Thank you for having us.
you don't sound like you're from around here. You sound like you might be in a different part of the world.
I'm from the middle of the UK, so in the Midlands of England,
The
in Robin
Midlands
Hood
of
country.
England.
Oh, I love it.
Awesome.
We're in the Southlands of Arkansas. Well, the Southlands of the U.S.,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the north of Arkansas.
Well, it looks like gorgeous weather there where you are.
Oh, it's
Oh, it
beautiful.
is
We've had lots
beautiful.
of
It's pretty
storms
today.
lately, but those have cleared up, and the rain has turned the grass a beautiful emerald green, and the wind has stopped blowing all kinds of branches into the pool. So I'm ready for some sunny weather after a lot of stormy weather.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've only just finished before talking to you about half an hour beforehand. We just finished an enormous thunderstorm
Really?
outside, and then it disappeared as we were getting ready for this show. So it must be something about you guys that's done it.
Hey man, we're your lucky charm.
That's awesome. Oh.
Everybody needs Lucky Charms.
Mm-hmm.
So, so what's your histories then in the world of therapy? Where does it come from?
Well, I started out in therapy in psychology back in the early 80s, and I just fell in love with it. I was a psych tech, and I have been on in psych units, thankfully not as a patient, but in psych units all over the U.S., and starting psych units and designing psych units and training staff for psych units. I spent a lot of time in Psych, which was a very rewarding experience dealing with people at the end of the spectrum of life. There's so much knowledge there. To you podcasters out there listening, let me just say, if you can interview some people that are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, you cannot believe the depth of knowledge that you can get on your podcast. And that's one of the things I miss the most about traveling about the U.S. doing continuous quality improvement, CQI, and quality assurance QA, is working with people with just such a deep well of knowledge. So that was kind of my entry point. I finished an undergrad in both psychology and social work and two other degrees, and then I finished a master's in social work, a master's in psychology, and then finally got a PhD in neuropsychology and forensic psychology, rounding it up to a nice little total of a very expensive 8 college degrees, which I'm sure I'll find very little use for, but it's nice to have it under my belt. And now I do a private practice. I've done private practice for 29, going on 30 years now. And I work these days with my team of therapists, Heather, Sarah, Debbie, and we're having a blast. And that's my history of mental health.
Okay, Heather.
I had well, my first spark with social work was from when um, I wanted to be able to help people. Like some people were able to help me when I had some medical issues when I was a kid. And I didn't know exactly at the time that it was social work, but I knew that I wanted to be able to help people through hard times. And then, so I went a couple different routes when first starting college, but then I decided, after talking to some advisors, that social work was a good, it kind of enclosed a lot of areas and it was very widespread. So, I decided to go to that field, and I worked with it through my internship with veterans and worked through this with them also with the service dog program. And then started working as a therapist, went through both bachelor's and master's. I've been working as a therapist for, I think, almost 2 years now. I've had my license a little bit over 2 years.
Wow. Well done. Debbie?
Thank you.
I have always enjoyed helping people. It seemed like all my life growing up, people would kind of come to me and talk to me and, bare their hearts. I had never really considered mental health as a career until I kind of had a difficult time in my own life and went through trauma therapy. And in the midst of that, just saw how wonderful it was, to see how it could empower your life. And I decided I want to help others this way. So I decided to pursue a degree in social work. So I had a bachelor's degree in social work, then went to grad school, graduate degree. I did my internship at the Beck Center for Veterans, working with combat veterans with PTSD, and then came to work here with the team and just love working here with the team. And I've been doing therapy probably about 3 years. So
That's great. Thank you for all the work that you do. Sarah?
thank you.
Hi. So kind of similar to Debbie, I went through some difficulty in my own life, and that kind of led me to want to be a social worker. I went back and forth for a while. At first, I wanted to be a doctor, but then I really wanted to kind of help people address, their thinking and kind of improve their life in that sense. So through my bachelor program in college, I was able to intern at the disability services on campus, and I worked there for a little bit during my grad school as well. That was a wonderful experience. And then during grad school, I was able to do 2 different internships. I worked in an inpatient mental health hospital for a year, and then I worked also at the Beck Center for Veterans with combat vets. That was wonderful. When I graduated and I got my license, I actually did medical social work for about 9 months or so, working in the hospitals, helping with discharge planning. If people came in and they were in crisis, suicidal or anything like that, I would help them through that and get them somewhere safe if they needed to be somewhere. And then after that, I worked for an agency, a therapy agency for a while, and then now I've been here just a little bit over a year, I believe. So I've been doing social work for a little over 3 years.
Yes, we have sound effects.
Wow, no expense spared today.
We do love going above and beyond.
So, how did you go from that then to deciding to do a podcast, then to, this podcast itself?
Gosh, I think it happened shortly after the mushrooms. No, I'm joking. No,
They do that to you.
I'm a big advocate of mushrooms, but it's not the kind you think. It's a mushroom extract, which I take 3 times a day. It really helps with processing speed as well as your immune system. But that's another advertisement for another day.
That's why he's a fun guy.
We thought we started getting requests from patients to share out some of the psychological information that we charge for. And not everybody in the States can afford insurance, and therefore not everyone has the opportunity to go to therapy. And there's so much nonsense, there's so much misinformation, especially on social media out there about psychological concepts. And some of the concepts are actually kind of hard to understand, we think, and we're really trying to boil those down. I'm not sure how good a job we're doing at boiling them down sometimes. We still have folks say, gosh, you're still too much in the clouds. You need to bring it down to a shoe leather level, like my dad used to say. So I think it was in an effort to give back and to meet the request of a lot of patients that were saying, y'all don't need to sit on this information. What you're doing is valuable. And we thought, gosh, how can we do that? And we had this crazy idea of starting the podcast, which we did last October the 15th, when we recorded in a marathon recording session 6 back-to-back podcast episodes. And the first of which we've labeled appropriately something like the our first ever awful, terrible podcast episode.
It's not that bad. I've listened. It's not that bad.
And we thankfully got some critiques for that. You know, for you podcasters listening, what is a critique? A critique is somebody who takes the time and energy to let you know that you're making a difference. So, so, well, I think Sarah shared this with us. Doc Heath Q-tip for the day: quit taking it personally. QTIP. Quit taking it personally, and reset your mind. And when you get a critic, thank your lucky stars. Be grateful for that, because as old scripture says, iron sharpens iron, and we love critics. I would buy them a latte with some mushroom extract in it, and I would give them a big hug, and reach around and give them a wedgie also, just to let them know there's nothing personal. And because critics can help you sharpen what you're doing and really embiggen your brain and embiggen your efforts, and we just love critics. So we got 2 critics early on that I think gave us a 3-star review, which I thought was very generous. You know, I really would have thought it'd been a 1-star review. I thought, gosh, you guys are just so generous, critiquing us and still giving us 2 stars that we really probably don't deserve. And we took that information and really began to hone our craft. And I still don't think that we did a great job the next few episodes, and so we honed it more. And I'll never be happy, probably, or pleased with the job we're doing, because I think it's good kind of being your own worst critic. I don't think anybody can criticize us better than we can, and yes, that's a challenge. So when I get critics on social media like Twitter, I have a whole gang of trolling Twitter or Twitter trolls. And I'm so grateful for you guys. I tell you, I really am, because I think you really, really, it's so motivating, because if you're doing something, if you never meet resistance, then you're going the wrong way. A good way to know you're going the right way is that you meet resistance. You know, the old quote in the South is, if you never meet the devil head on, you need to check your direction, make sure you're not going the wrong direction. And if you never meet a critic, you're going the wrong direction. Critics just let me know I'm doing something right.
Yep. Brilliant. So, how did you come about the well? I mean, I've got show structure, but it's different according to what sort of episode that you do, because you will do the 4 heads thing where you'll just have your general discussion about specific subjects, but then you also have the interview shows as well. So, but therein you still have these little sections in the show. How did you come about that actual structure for the show, and what sort of structure? How would you explain that structure to people?
I would explain it with the words insomnia-induced delirium. That came about staying up really late at night, worrying and fretting on how to make some of our episodes stick out. And I don't know. I'm not really sure exactly where that came from. Just out of the, I mean, I wish I had a great answer for that. I just think it came out of the ether. You know, I think the wonderful thing about the human brain is that if you give it something to think about and simmer on and then just let it cook, it'll do that. And stop trying to force yourself coming up with an answer. And so I was talking with a friend of mine about a take on Sigmund Freud, and I really don't know if I came up with it or Tim came up with it. I guess I'll just give Tim credit for it. But Tim is a friend of mine that does that particular voiceover of Dr. I'm or Freud not, and I think he gave him a name and I didn't like it, and I added the IMA to it. I think he said Freud not, and I said let's make it IMA, as in, what do you think about that? Do you think that woo-woo psychology is on the right track? I'm afraid not.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
Tim went on a vacation because he decided to do something crazy like take a honeymoon. I don't know why people do things like that. You know, honeymoons get in the way of podcasting. Why would you do that? Well, Tim went on a honeymoon, and we needed a drop. And my other favorite guy is hanging around here somewhere. Oh, by the way, here's Dr. Eimer Freudnot. He's hanging about. And then, oh, he's over there. Debbie has him. And we came up with a name to kind of go off of Carl Jung. And at this point, we haven't done a drop with Carl Jung in a while. What was I calling Carl Jung?
Young
Oh,
at Tart.
Yeah.
Dr.
Jung.
Jung
Yeah.
A. Tart. Yeah,
Yeah.
J-U-N-G, Jung
Yeah.
A. Tart. So you say it 3 times really fast. Dr. Jung a Tart, Jung a Tart, Jung a Tart. And we just love plays on words. You know, we're just kind of silly that way. So all this stuff just comes about, I think, mainly induced by lack of sleep.
And too many mushrooms.
And too many mushrooms. Watch out for the mushrooms. They'll get you.
Oh goodness.
Steer clear of the primal screaming. I'm trying to get one in, but it's having to be forced.
We'd have to mute. Have to turn the gain on the mic down. I think we blow somebody's eardrums out. But we just thought that would add interest. Now the other drops, we have several drops. One drop is Social Media Smackdown, which is
Yep.
based on my own just sheer enjoyment of debating nonsense on social media. It's really quite entertaining when people say they think they've triggered me or something. And I literally read some of this stuff, and there's tears of laughter running down my cheeks because I just think some of this stuff is such nonsense. And so I'll debate it. So we call that Social Media Smackdown, and we do the video where I've got the sock and boppers on, and the sock and bop on robots in the background on my big screen, you know. The other one is called
Yep.
Sock Secrets, which is kind of an undercover thing to share some, you know, sock secrets like what's the diagnosis that every parent has? The secret diagnosis every parent has: trichotillomania.
Oh.
What is trichotillomania? The irresistible urge to pull your hair out.
Yeah.
I see that you've had that.
I have. Yeah, it's
Follicularly challenged, I see. My brother's the same
yes. Yep.
way. He's so jealous.
I've got some
So
hair
we
in
do the
places,
sock
but not
secrets,
everywhere.
And then what's the? Oh, Sarah does. Tell us about yours, Sarah.
Yeah, I do creature feature. So that one's actually kind of morphed over time. If you watch some of the earlier episodes, it was just me kind of sitting in my living room with my laptop on my lap. And then after a while, I decided to make it kind of silly and fun. And so you'll see me hiding under the table, and then I'll like whip up, and I've got these sunglasses on, and I'm like, "Did you see him? Did you see him?" And then it turned into more of like a reporter in kind of a Jurassic Park type of role, and that's what it is right now. So I go by Safari Sarah. And it's just a lot of fun because we have a lot of these cute little creatures that came out of, you know, Doc Keith's brain with all the mushroom coffee in it. And we wanted people to kind of know where they came from and what they stood for, because, you know, if you just see like a little ant or a little gnat holding a compass, you're going to be like, what? What is that? So we were like, you know what, let's introduce it in the episode, and it's been a lot of fun.
And tell them what it stands for.
Oh, yeah, an ant is an automatic negative thought, and a gnat is a negative automatic thought.
And then we have
Wow.
different ants. We have the catastrophizing ant that has a bazooka.
Yeah.
We have the fairy-tailing gnat, which has a little wand. We
Yeah.
have the mind-reading gnat that has a the mind-reading gnat has a little
Yeah, he's got like
Hands
the
little-
up on his head.
old
We all do that.
Justice League Aquaman thing. And then we have the fortune-telling gnat, which is the crystal ball. And of course, all these are distorted ways of thinking. So it's really just our quirky take on common psychological concepts from the field of cognitive
Yep.
science, specifically cognitive behavioral therapy.
And I think sometimes when you have things that can be paired with like a physical like picture, like you can kind of picture it in your mind, it can almost be easier to learn it in a way, like because you've got like fun ways to remember it.
True.
So
Yeah, we have one of my favorites is the underthinking ant. You know, you hear about overthinking. I don't think that exists, actually. I've never met someone that actually thought too much. It's the opposite of underthinking. And the underthinking ant has a big, long telescope focused at the ground.
Brilliant. Brilliant. This reminds me of a lot of, Dr. Seuss elements, and over here we have Spike Milligan and other people. I mean, it's got that sort of feel to it. But the thing is, I mean, the structure that you've got, it's smart because it has almost got that feel of the old Saturday morning television shows where you'd have like the overarching main part of the show going on throughout, and then every now and again you'd have like little cartoons and then these other bits going on in between, and it's got almost that feel to it. But the way that you do it is that you don't lose track of what's going on in the main body of the show with these little incidental bits going on, because these little incidental bits, like the creature feature and all those, they're only for like short moments. So you'll keep the track of the main bit, but having these little interstitials helps to keep the show. It gives it almost a pulse in a sense, and keeps it lively, and it's got a heartbeat to it that makes it,
We hope
what
so.
it
The
is.
intent is to kind of keep things moving along and to give the audience a payoff. So you kind of have to listen through to get all the payoffs. And the drops, as we call them, are meant to be the payoffs, but the payoff is just a little bite, hence therapy bites. Just a little psychologically nutritious bite that if you stick around, there's something new every single time. We started doing this thing called a psychomalarkey scale, and I give the guest, and we could, Marv, we could do this on you just right here off the cuff. Just one of the questions that we typically ask our guests, and then at the end, Dr. Amar Freudnot does what we call a psychomalarkey scale analysis of the contributions of the guest, and we give the guest an option of one of two psychomalarkey scale assessments. And one is the farm animal forkball. We use baseball terminology. And the
Watch
other
how you
is
say that.
the farm animal 5. The farm animal 5. And we just ask different questions. But I'll let the guest choose, and then based on the assessment. But I'll just ask you one of those. It's one of my favorite questions. If they pick the forkball assessment, and that is, which piece of baseball equipment would you least like your proctologist to use at your next exam? Least like.
Least like. I mean, I'd rather not have any of that equipment, really.
Yeah. You're having a proctology exam, and the proctologist says, I have this equipment. Which one do you not want me to use? It's a very typical answer for most people. It's kind of disturbing.
I'd probably go for the bat.
Most
probably
people
go for the
do,
bat.
yes. Most people would prefer not to have a proctology exam with a baseball bat.
No, especially one of those metal ones that some of them use nowadays.
Yeah, no liver sluggers for my proctology exam. Which I'm scheduled for, and you men of a certain age, I encourage you to schedule yours as well. With a proctologist without a baseball bat.
I never thought I'd be talking about metal baseball bats going there.
Man, this stuff is as serious as a dangling hemorrhoid, I'm telling you.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, dear me.
This is a live stream. We're not even editing this stuff. That's kind of scary, huh?
So out of the thousands of different topics that you could choose, what makes you choose those specific topics that you talk about in each episode? And then what research do you do leading up to the episodes?
Well, the topics themselves, if we're just doing like an episode with the four of us, we usually either get them from if somebody has reached out to us with a question and they're like, hey, we'd really like you to cover this topic, or if it's something that we've been noticing a lot, if we've been working with people and they've got the same question over and over and over again, we're like, you know what, why don't we make a podcast episode about this and share it out that way, so not just the people that we're working with benefit from it. And then sometimes it's just something kind of off the cuff where we're like, hey, you know what, I've been thinking about this quite a bit and I'd love to make an episode about it. There's kind of multiple pools of information that we pull from.
Yeah, I would encourage you podcasters out there, if you whatever smartphone device you have, here's mine. Oh, here's my son who is grilling hamburgers, by the way. But Apple Notes. Apple Notes is my greatest podcast friend because
Yeah.
I can, not while you're driving, be responsible. Don't do it while you're driving or operating heavy machinery. Or having a proctology exam. That would just be weird. But write down your ideas somewhere because here's a neuroscience thing. Not every experience becomes a memory. Thoughts are experiences that may not become a memory. Thoughts about an episode topic are experiences that may not become a memory. So write them down, and that's what I do. Get them out of your head, put them into your phone, and that's where mine come from. We have a lot that are that way. As Sarah said, we have actual patients who say, "Hey," which we did the other day. Marv, you're our fourth podcast today. You're podcast number
Wow.
4 of today.
Wow.
We did 3 right before you this morning. And we had somebody reach out to us and said, hey, would y'all please do an episode on healing distant relationships? Yes, absolutely we'll do that. And that's for one person. Actually, it's for 3 people. We actually had 3 people that along the way said it'd be great if y'all did more, shared some information about this. But we didn't do that for 1 million people. We don't have 1 million listeners. We don't really care if we have 1 million listeners. 3 is enough. If we serve those 3 people, we've done our job. As I often say, one of my favorite stories is of the farmer that went to church on a snowy evening, and the pastor said, well, Farmer Johnson, since you're the only one that showed up, I guess we'll cancel services. And he said, preacher, if I go out to feed the cows and one cow shows up, I feed that cow. So you podcasters, listen to this. Stop trying to serve 1 million people. Serve one. Why is that not enough? If you can change one life, if you can improve one person's life, just one, why is that not enough? By the time you get to have 10, 20, 30, 40,000 listeners, I would argue if you're not careful, you will become a less effective podcaster because then you're podcasting to numbers, not people, and people are not numbers.
Yeah,
So we get ideas from those things.
I think the more people that listen, if you're doing a show that's listened to by more people, I think it's more background and not paid attention to. If you do a show that is essentially niche and catches that little amount of people, you're being listened to more. It's not just like something that's going on in the background. It's something that people pay attention to.
When you find your audience, it's kind of like Dale Carnegie said in his book, How to Win Friends, Influence People. And by the way, he was around and passed away long before social media happened and all that. But I remember reading part of that book because it was in my dad's sock drawer. I don't know why I kept Dale Carnegie's book in the sock drawer, but I was a nosy kid and I pulled it out and read it. And it said that no person has more than 2 to 3 really good friends. You just don't have time for that. Yeah. No one has 500 friends on Facebook. Those are people that click the link. That doesn't make them a friend. That makes them somebody that clicked a link on a social media account. That's not a friend. Friendship is deeper than that. So to your point, Marv, when you find your audience, and it's a small audience, then the beauty of that is you have greater depth with that smaller audience than you have with a huge audience which probably accounts to a very shallow depth, because you can pour yourself into serving that niche, and then you're just kind of like a jigsaw puzzle piece in the mosaic of podcasting. And that's all we want to do. We're not here to try to, as they say, be Joe Rogan. I have no interest in that. We're not here to appeal to everybody. We're here to appeal and serve in the best way we know how to the small niche audience that listens to our show. And it's not for everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, one of the best things with me is when people will say to me, I listened to your show, and because of that, I found out about this other podcast who you've been having a chat with, and I've started listening to them now all the time. And that's the best thing, is that they're paying attention and being introduced to another podcast. That's the whole idea of what I'm doing, really, is to introduce people to a show that they are looking for, but in some ways they didn't know they were looking for that.
Man, what a mission.
cool.
My hat's off to you. That's
Great.
fantastic. That is fantastic. The other place we get our ideas is from my debates, and then also from just reviewing social media. If we see a concept that is really shared out en masse, that is inaccurate, that we think is actually harmful to people, then we tackle it. We don't shy away. We don't care who agrees with us, who doesn't agree with us. And we tackle it. We tackle it head on and without apology. And Rush Limbaugh, and you guys that don't know Rush Limbaugh, you can look him up, but and decide what you think about him. He's from a town about 2 hours north of here, Cape Girardeau, Missouri, famous broadcaster in the U.S. But Rush Limbaugh said you have a choice, and the choice is, and Sarah, the screen is off.
I know,
Oh, you
I
know the
did.
screen's off. Rush Limbaugh said that you have a choice. You can be milk toast about something, but that's not going to work in broadcasting. And I don't think it's going to work in podcasting either. If you're for something 100%, if you're against it 100%, no half measures, no partial measures, come at it with passion, determination, and gumption. Gumption, that's a word my dad would use, without apology. If someone disagrees with you, fantastic. Again, it lets you know that you're headed in the right direction.
To use a Star Wars analogy, there is no can or cannot. No, there is no try. There is either can or cannot. I think that's sort
That's
of
right.
along the
There's
lines
no
of what they
try.
say in that.
There's no
Yeah,
try.
there is no
There's
try.
only do it
You'll
or
either
not.
do it or don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned, by the way, Doc, you mentioned about using Apple Notes, and there's the secret behind the blog post that I do when I blog about the podcast to listen to. I'm screaming at my phone using the Apple AI. I'm not going to shout it now. You never shut the thing up. But yeah, the amount of trouble I had trying to say the phrase I can't even say it, catastrophizing,
Oh,
and it was
yeah.
like coming up with so many different options. I wish I'd have kept those options in the blog post, actually, because that would have been humorous to see what it was putting forward. But so yeah, we both use Apple Notes.
And catastrophization.
Yeah.
That's it.
Catastrophize and catastrophization. There is a scale, we call it the catastrophization scale. And once you're able to determine in your life what's a true level 10, then you'll see that most things are a 1 or maybe a 0.1. Because few things in life rise to level 10, but you run into people that catastrophize all the time. I was, my last 2 podcasts for a podcast I do called Executive Espresso, Caffeinated Conversations with Dr. Heath on business life and relationship success. They just, I don't know, I had technology, by the way, technological difficulties. Scar Hulk from Hulk and the Agents of Smash used to say that, by the way. And I thought about stopping the feed, but I didn't. I just problem solved and fixed it and moved on. And it's life. And I think that we live in a world that is so weary with overproduced, Hollywoodized, just fakery and fairy tales that people are really hungry for something that's real. And I think that's the value that podcasting brings. If we'll let it, it's something that's real.
Absolutely. So, therapy tales. I love the episodes where you will discuss therapy or incidents with therapy where people have been for therapy and they've been given wrong advice, maybe.
Yeah, we're full of
Mm-hmm.
those. Debbie, what's one of those that you said that you heard? And then there's that account, what's it called? Therapists Who Rock, that is just a wealth of bad information.
Yeah, I think one that I've heard more than once, is people coming to me that have experienced trauma and want to do trauma work, and they've been told over and over, well, the thing to do is to avoid it. Write it in a book, close the book, put it on the shelf, and avoid it, and go get your marijuana prescription card and do hot yoga, and you'll be good. And actually, avoiding is the worst thing to do. Avoiding keeps it going.
They left out the mushrooms, though.
Yeah, they didn't talk about. I haven't had anybody
Yeah.
talk about mushrooms.
But you find that you avoid things, you'll find that it actually makes it worse because it it builds it up almost. It's almost like avoiding it is feeding it. It's like a beast that if you keep
Mm-hmm.
avoiding, it's feeding on that avoidance when eventually it will come out even bigger and cause even more catastrophization
Oh,
than it would have
yeah,
done
yeah. That's
originally.
good.
Yep.
You're right.
I
A little
tried.
neuroscience there is people don't understand about avoidance is that you can't avoid accidentally. Avoidance is really an intentional thing. And when you intentionally do something, the brain reads that as necessary. In other words, the doing of a thing is telling my brain this is a valuable thing to do. Then that could be eating a case of honey buns all day long. It could be, uh, I don't know, drinking too much. I mean, it could be anything, literally anything. Um, but when you avoid, you're telling your brain that the thing I'm avoiding is important because you're focusing on it. And if that is a difficult emotion, such as, well, anger or irritation or even anxiety, which I struggle with, really high levels of anxiety younger, and of course, like most people, I still struggle with it. I also struggle with lots of episodes of panic, which, by the way, I don't call panic attacks because there's nothing attacking me. That just makes matters worse in my brain, telling myself that something's attacking me. The more you focus on avoiding an emotion, the more your brain's going to create of it eventually long term. The better choice is what? Avoid avoiding. Avoid avoiding.
Yes.
Embrace it instead.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Because I know I was saying to somebody else who was, do you know what? I wish I'd taken the name, but we were talking earlier on because I was explaining that I was chatting to yourselves, and I was saying how I have this thing that if if there's an overarching problem in life that gets discussed before I try to go to sleep, I find it difficult then to sleep on that. I find that I have to inside my own head, I have to work out how am I going to get around this problem, and then once I've got round that, then I'm calm and able to go to sleep. It's because
Ah,
I've come up with an idea of how to sort that problem out.
yes,
Um,
exactly. And remember, as we're saying, the art lab, and what does the art lab stand for? We call this the art lab studio. Okay, can you put it up there where I can do a live feed on my camera, Sarah, and I can
Yes.
show everybody our little gear setup. We used to do this very readily and handedly, but I am.
You
Let's
just have to
see.
put it on your camera.
What should I click on?
Probably your
it looked
camera.
impressive what I just saw.
Um, just well, I'll try to figure that out. This is called the Art Lab Studio, that stands for Accurate Realistic Thoughts, Life Affirming Beliefs. We try to be clever
Yep.
calling it the Art Lab. There's an art of living, and it is accurate, realistic thoughts. Um, but a good way to think of that is that the brain creates thoughts, the way blizzards create snowflakes. It's just what the brain
Wow.
does. Just because
Yep.
the brain creates a thought doesn't mean it's an accurate or realistic or healthy thought. So what you can do, Marv, or anybody else listening, is you can write all those thoughts out on a sheet of paper, arrange them in order of most likely. It's called the law of parsimony. All things being equal, the simplest explanation is usually the most accurate. So get them out of your head on a sheet of paper. Allow yourself to consider other things. Don't underthink it, meaning don't ignore other important ways of thinking. Entertain all of them, but ask yourself which one of these thoughts is the pathway that leads my life in the direction which is healthy for me. Which one? And you have many options.
And there's always the possibility as well that if you are in a situation where you are thinking about these things and it's just too much and you just can't quite, there's nothing wrong with just nipping to get yourself a drink and then sit down with a drink which will relax you and make it easier for you to work these things out, maybe.
Well, maybe, or you could do something that's readily available and free, cheaper, not harmful at all, and that is breathe. Because a lot of times
Yeah.
we really forget to breathe. If you watch your puppy dog, if there's something that your puppy dog perceives as a danger, what will it do? It will hold its breath. If you catch yourself in the middle of catastrophizing, you'll notice that you're breathing much more shallow. So focus in on your breathing. On the in breath, focus on the in breath. On the out breath, focus on the out breath. You could even create a mantra, still mind. My brain is the train. My breath is the track. My breath keeps my brain on track. If you'll practice, that can become a conditioned response to difficult thoughts and difficult emotions. Breathing. It's the greatest drug you'll ever find. Readily available.
I was going to say, yeah, yeah, yeah. I wasn't on about alcohol, by the way. I was just on about like a cup of tea or something. That's
A cup of tea, green tea,
Green tea's good.
with some mushroom in it.
Oh no.
I get that.
No
on Amazon,
sponsorship
by the way.
here.
It's called Seven Sacred Mushrooms. I don't have an affiliate agreement, but do something that's relaxing. Take a walk, observe a bird, a flower. We have lots of lizards around here. I like to lizard watch. They run about.
I like when they do the push-ups on the wall.
They do the push-ups on the wall. Is that what they're doing?
Yeah.
I love lizard push-ups. I need to do more of those myself. Marv, you had some more questions. I don't want to take over the airspace. Speaking of air in the room.
That's okay. So, so when you do get guests, how do you find those guests, and then how do you get them onto the show? Is getting them on the show sort of like a last thing? Because I know some shows they're more bothered, like Walking Tall, who I spoke with the other week. They're more bothered about making sure that those people are okay, and then the coming on as a guest is almost like a last thing, like or them saying, "Oh well, I'll go on your show if you like." It's more that. So how do you sort that out?
Who wants to take that one?
Heather.
I think we've gotten some of our people from talking with them on Podmatch. We've had some people that have requested and just kind of asked, "Hey, can we be on? We've listened to your podcast. We like it. We'd like to talk with you." And so we've had them come on. We've had other people who, I believe, we had someone who was a friend, I think. Yeah, and he came on, and then we've
Fellow professionals.
Fellow
We'll find people that are
professionals,
fellow
yeah.
professionals. Yeah.
and just different kind of life coaches, different types of just coaches in general, just kind of seeing what fits kind of with like our audience and what they would enjoy, and kind of what would be good to just kind of talk about on the show that kind of goes with what we're going with. And we kind of talk to them about just kind of, we go back and forth and kind of just see, kind of when they're available, and then we'll schedule it. And what else? I know there's more to is there like a vetting process? I'm not on that end of it, so.
Well, I've started asking people if you mind if I disagree with you on air, because I had one guest. I didn't say that, and the guest actually asked me right out. They said, "You're not going to disagree with me, are you?" And it really caught me by surprise, because personally, I never mind if someone disagrees with me. To me, it's just information, and I'm okay if the information someone else has said disagrees with mine. I'll challenge theirs. I'm okay with them challenging mine. But out in the podcast world, believe it or not, there's a lot of people, they just don't want to be challenged. I mean, they really closely guard their perspective of the world, which I think is not a really good idea, by the way. If what you believe can't be challenged with any other information, then how does what you believe differ from a fairy tale?
Yep.
By the way, I stole that from one of your fellow countrymen, a famous philosopher back in the day, Sir Anthony Flew, Flew. And if you believe what you believe and you think it's accurate, then unless it's a fairy tale, then be open to people challenging it, because it sharpens your perspective, it sharpens your argument, and if it can't be challenged, then what good is it? It's no different than the tooth fairy. So the vetting process Heather talked about is I typically ask people, look, you say some things that I don't particularly agree with. I still want you on the show. Can we have an open, honest, debate, discussion about that? I will, in my social media SmackDown debates on social media, I'll invite people and say, hey, if you're convinced that I'm right, or I'm sorry, that you're right, I'm wrong, then we'll put a camera in your face, a mic on your mouth, and you can, tell my audience how you think I'm mistaken.
Yep.
And then it's my turn. I have not even once been taken up on that. Never. Never, never, never. It's really quite shocking, which means that those people, they don't even believe what they're saying. They're just saying it. So the vetting process is some of that. We will send out a instruction sheet that tells people, what we recommend as far as mics, camera. We use Ecamm, so use Chrome, works best with Ecamm, and other things. And so we do a little bit of guest education. I have an outline, a interview card, as I call it, but it's just a suggestion. I don't mind getting off of that, but when I'm doing the interview, I will track. So there is a beginning, middle, and end, as my famed speech professor used to say to me. Tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So that's the rough structure of our interview card.
Brilliant. So I'm guessing that the show is, as we're using this software now, which is Guest Ecamm, is it called?
Yes.
I think. So is that how you do it all of the time, or is that just how you record the show when you've got guests?
Always. We don't do it any other way. We often have guests who will, or folks that want to interview us, use other software. It's, whatever your jam is, we just like Ecamm. We don't have an affiliate agreement. I'm not recommending it because we get $6 or whatever out of recommending it. I just think it's a good product. It does take some learning. There's a bit of a learning curve, but that's okay. By the way, learning new things helps make your brain more resilient to cognitive decline later in life. Learn new things.
Yep.
And it has lots.
Which,
of
like I said, before we went live, I'd already said to you that was one of the good things about the show that I do, is that initially it was Heather who asked me about, who was saying this about it, and I said that I started by initially looking at shows that I was already listening to personally, and I was sort of like listening to similar type of shows. But then I realised that the best thing to do was use the show's principle, of bringing people, you know, a new show to them, or a new type of show to them. I thought if I open my mind to other types of show and other sorts of media there in the world of podcasting, that's actually making expanding my own understanding in a sense, or it just opens your mind to more options.
I agree. Don't don't get your podcasting brain stuck in a box. Be willing to try new things and look at what other people are doing and borrow their concepts, make them your own. I mean, if this is a community, let's synergize and use the best of all worlds, because we have an audience that we're here to serve. And so if we're cooking up something in the Therapy Bites kitchen that works well, we're glad to serve it up for you guys. And if there's anybody out there that wants to interview us, we're glad to do that. And you can use our setup, our software to do it. We'll send you a link, and the show is yours. And once it's recorded, we'll send you the files, and you can chop them up however you want, share them out on social media, send it back to us. We'll do the same. I think we should be there to support each other.
Me too, and I like this format. I love that. I even like the look of the layout of the screen as well. That was it. Sarah set this layout
That's
up.
all Sarah.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll have to get her some bonus mushrooms.
Oh no. Level up.
She might not be able to control it if she has too many of them. Dare I say, been there, done that. Number 8. I was in a rock band when I was younger, so these things happen. Logo and music. So,
Yeah,
logo
our
and music.
logo.
Yeah.
Does somebody want to share the story behind the logo? What the logo means? It is very symbolic.
Yeah. Who is that blue guy?
Oh,
Who is
yeah.
that blue guy?
So he is actually the psychology symbol. So if you look at, I don't have a picture of it right now, but if you look at the psychology symbol on really anywhere you see anything about psychology,
Yeah.
it's got like the two forks like this. So we just made him a little noodly guy, so he can do all sorts of stuff. But he's sitting on the couch, and we're beneath the couch. So there's all 4 of our heads beneath the couch, and then if we have a guest, we put them. Oh, hang on,
there it is.
There it is, the psychology symbol.
Yeah, we
Okay,
just
yeah.
the blue guy is here's your other big word for the day: an anthropomorphized. Say that 10 times real fast. An anthropomorphized version of the psychology symbol, because to me that looked like arms. And I had a buddy of mine, hey, also from the UK, the
Yep.
great Phil Gormley, who I've worked with for 17, 18 years now on different projects, brought Psy Guy, as he came to be called, brought Psy Guy to life by making him look more human. And he started out blind, because the point was we think that the world of psychology has a blindness to things that ought not, a blindness to what it does to people when you label them with a diagnosis. For a really, really big one, a blindness when you use such terms as gaslighting and manipulating and controlling and toxic, how very bad that is for you to have those words in your mouth. And so he was blind. But then we wanted him more cuddly, because people called him that blue alien creature. So we put a pair of glasses on him to humanize him, and some googly eyes
Yeah.
to make him more quirky, fuzzy wuzzy, which is really kind of our jam, And the couch, of course, has a big bite out. The symbolic therapy couch, and we put it where there's a bite out of it, hence therapy.
Oh yeah.
Bites. And we put our little emoji heads under it, because we're coming out from under the couch. We're out of the couch, out from under the couch. We're from the deep, dark recesses of the therapy couch.
Yep.
Now you can have that thought while you're there listening on your couch in pitch blackness to this show. They are all under your couch.
With mushroom coffee.
We're nipping at the heels of psychomalarkey, social media psychomalarkey.
It's like, come under the couch. We have mushrooms.
We have
Do you edit the shows together? I mean, yeah. When actually, that's interesting, Marv. So I can't believe I'm actually congratulating myself for this. So when you do the chats with people, is that done in one stream, and then you edit in the sections in between and break
have
it up
5
and then do it
podcasts a
that way?
week.
Yep.
On Tuesdays, we either record a interview episode, which is a long form hour up to hour and a half, or as we did today, we do a short form team episode with just the 4 of us covering a topic. And that is both of those, either interview or just the team episode, are recorded and then edited to get the best possible sound.
Yep.
We want to put our best foot forward, best sound, best audio, visuals forward in that. But then on Tuesday evenings, like tonight, I will do a live stream, unedited, Jeopardy-style psychological game show patterned after Jeopardy, where I tackle in 18 to 20 minutes some psychology questions that people have sent us, and I say the answers, and the audience tries to come up with the questions, and they win we call them Psy-Coins, PCs, Psy-Coins that they can get, they can redeem, add up, collect to get merchandise for free from the TherapyBites store. I do that Tuesday, Thursday. And then on Saturdays, I do the Executive Espresso, caffeinated conversations with Dr. Heath, 9 a.m. Sometimes it's 10. Sometimes I have one guest. Sometimes I have 2. Sometimes I have none because they don't show up. But that's okay. And those are not edited. Those are just live streamed. And then we do a clubhouse, a T-ball clubhouse, which is a psychological support group every Tuesday at 12 noon Central Standard Time, Chicago, Memphis time. And that is also not edited. We just put out one edited show a week. We drop it every Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. And
That's great.
The way that comes about is after we get the audio done, I make sure that the audio and the video are, that they line up. And then we go in and we kind of cut it out to where, like, if there's excess content or stuttering or silent spots, we'll cut those out. And then I make that into one film. And then I'll have a list of what drops go with which episodes. So typically, if you pay attention to the longer episodes, they'll have 2 drops in them. And they'll alternate each time. And then the short form episodes will have 1 drop in them, and it's the same every time. And so I'll take...
Well, the short form one is the Fresh from the Therapy Couch. We share a story that someone has said, I want others to learn from my experience, and they have given us permission to share out that story.
Mm-hmm. And then in the longer episodes, we'll have the 2 drops, which alternate between... we'll have one episode that has the social media smackdown and the couch crumb quote. And then we'll have the other ones that have the creature feature and psych secrets. And then what I do is I'll kind of see where the middle of the episode is. I'll chop it, and then I'll put in the music and videos and different drops, and then I'll smush it all together and put in transitions and stuff like that.
And I want to encourage you guys, you podcasters, give us your feedback on our outro. We put a lot of work into coming up with a cool, quirky, snarky outro. And we've been told, I don't know, I don't want to brag on ourselves, but I think it worked out pretty good. Heather does a great job on editing. Always. Debbie jumps in and helps her. Sarah, we all kind of have our little parts we play in this jigsaw puzzle of our podcast adventure.
That's great. So Logo and music. So, have you got any episodes? I mean, you put out a lot of episodes. So, are there any that really, really stand out to you?
Ooh. I think
Sarah.
Debbie and I might pick the same one, but I'll
Yeah.
go ahead
Go
with it.
ahead.
I really enjoyed the Kim Sorrell episode.
Yeah.
What was that about?
That was about Love Is. She wrote the book Love Is. Her
Oh,
husband,
Love Is, yeah.
She and her
Wow, yeah.
husband both got cancer diagnoses within, what was it, just a couple
8
months
months
of
or
each other,
something,
and her
yeah.
husband didn't make it. And so she kind of shares her story with other people to help them, but she went off as a missionary, I believe to Africa, was it not? Or no, it
I
may have been
just went
somewhere
blank.
else.
Yeah.
But she went off as a missionary, and during that time, she spent a month.
Dominican Republic.
It may have been. She spent 1 month on each aspect of love that's found in the scriptures. You know, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. She spent 1 month on each one of those. So her first chapter of her book is Love is Patient, and she just explores that in ways that you never really would imagine. But through that interview, she shared all of that information with us. I encourage y'all to go listen to it. It's really good. But
really good.
it kind of makes you think, you know, maybe the things in my life aren't as bad as I think they are. And I wish I could handle things as well as she's handled them. But she's very inspirational in that episode.
I think one of my favorites was my Executive Espresso with Dr. Jeremy Sherman, who does research and has written books on, his words, not mine, effectively dealing with assholes.
We need
I
to
view
read
as
that
an
book.
opportunity.
Everybody needs to read that.
And by the way, if you go through your day, if everybody you meet is an asshole, you need to stop and ask yourself, maybe you're the asshole. If you're labeling everybody else as that. My other favorite one would be with my good friend Mark Lothar,
Yeah,
who
that's a good
is
one.
a world-class, worldwide hostage negotiator trainer. And Mark
Wow.
and I used to travel the U.S. After he took over from my former, now deceased business partner, Dominic Messino, who used to have his own TV show called Hostage Do or Die. You guys can look that up on Investigative Discovery. It's called Hostage Do or Die, and I miss Dominic every day. But Mark took his role, and Mark and I would go across the country teaching crisis negotiation, hostage negotiation techniques. And Mark did a show where he teamed up on how to use world-class hostage negotiation techniques in your relationship. And that turned out to be a really great
That was a good one.
I like that
episode.
So many good ones, really. Roman Prokop was
Roman
good.
Roman
Yes,
Prokopich,
great.
the Roman's
Yes.
Road to Resilience. Roman is a
Awesome. Ukrainian.
well, he comes from Ukraine, and he has adopted over his life, I don't know, 50 kids or something
Lots of
like that.
children.
He is a foster parent,
Yes.
and is just changing the world, and has an incredible story of his leaving the Ukraine and coming to the U.S. And he's also a podcaster, and so look up Roman and our episode with Roman called "The Roman's Road to Resilience," which of course is about something that is in very short supply in our country of very spoiled people, resilience. Your camera's
Heather,
off, Dee.
you got a favourite?
Oh, there's so many. One that I really enjoyed was Kim Sorrell's, and then also I'm trying to remember the name.
What's it about?
It was the gentleman who had cancer.
Was it Bob DePasquale?
Yes,
Bob DePasquale, man.
Yes, that
What
was
an
a
amazing
really good
episode.
one.
Bob's an
was.
amazing guy.
Yes,
He is.
that was another one that was a.
By the way, if you're on our show, we'll
much
have
as
to
I
do
know.
one for you. We'll have to get a graphic and do a graphic because we, if you're a guest on our show, we make a graphic and put your memoji head on a yoga body on a cup and a T-shirt.
Probably the only time you'll see my head on top of a yoga body.
We'll
That's
put
great.
you in I don't know. We'll have to pick the proper yoga pose. But you can look at our Shopify store at all the different yoga poses. And
Yeah.
we'll do you a graphics, and so you can get your own mug from the Therapy Bites shop. We'll give you a coupon or something. All you gotta do. Well, yeah, we give our guests a free mug and a free T-shirt for being on the show.
Yep. Do you know I'm going to go off on something else now? Just very quickly, just say something. So before I mean, well, we are going to go for top tips for self care anyway. So in a sense, this sort of fits. So when I had my chat with Chris from Walking Tall, we were talking about how people when they go through. I'm sorry, I'm getting very serious now. Sorry. We were talking about when people go through a traumatic experience and dealing with those sorts of things and how that can, I mean, obviously, understandably, it can cause a lot of problems, mentally with people. And I was saying in that through my own experience when I was abused in childhood, I was saying that a lot of problems that these people have, they'll have dreams. You will have dreams about these things. And I was saying that how it works is that one of the worst things people can say is, "Oh, you'll get over it," or along similar lines, you'll forget about it. And that's not really how it works. How it works is that you will still have that still lives with you. These things still live with you. It's just that you come to a certain stage in your development of this where you'll say it's something really weird. It's almost I don't know how to explain it. Almost epiphanal in a sense, where at a certain point in therapy, through therapy, because you'll have to go through therapy for these things, you get to a point where you're almost saying it's like an affirmative where you're saying, "Look, that will always be with me, but it doesn't dictate who I am." And the more that becomes part of you, and it doesn't dictate who you are. Yeah, you'll still have those. Occasionally, you'll have those nightmares probably come to you now and again, but they don't make as much of an impression or change to you as a person. That's really the truth behind that, I think.
Well, sure. Trauma is a chisel that can shape your life until you realize that ultimately you're the one holding the chisel, and you get to decide.
Yep.
You get to decide. I get to decide how that shapes my life. And wielding that chisel begins with deciding how I'm going to choose to think about those experiences. I get to
Yep.
decide. The only way to not think about them is, I don't know, probably, I've told people sitting here, they'll say, "Can you stop it?" or "How soon will it stop?" "Oh, you want it to stop? I wish you'd said so earlier." I can stop those memories in about 3 minutes. I just have to have time to go to the garage, get my 3-pound hammer with which I would hit you in the head really hard, and then you'll
Yep.
forget all kinds of things. But no, short of a head injury induced amnesia of some kind, there's no forgetting. There's only the sculpting. There's no forgetting. There's only the shaping of how you're going to decide to think about that experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the more you run from it, the more it's going to chase you. So instead of avoiding, begin avoiding the avoiding. Avoid the avoiding.
There we go again. So, what top tips do you have for self care?
Ooh. Don't stop going, I guess is a good one. Whenever we've experienced something difficult or something traumatic, we have it's tempting to just stop and isolate yourself from everybody and not talk to anybody anymore and just kind of live in your own head. That's probably the worst thing you could do. Whenever you're dealing with something difficult and your first thought is, "Well, I just don't want to be around people," that's probably a good indicator you need to be around people. You need to talk to people. You need to keep up those friendships. You know, have conversations, difficult conversations with people that you care about. Exercise is great too. It's a really good time to process what you're thinking when you're doing something physical. But I'll let somebody else take the lead.
And another one is
Oh,
your
your camera died again.
Oh no,
Having some technical difficulties.
it's doing that. It's, there it goes.
I'll give it just a second.
Another one is your thinking. Think about your thinking and make sure that you're thinking healthy, accurate thoughts, and identify the unhealthy thoughts and restructure them to something that is more helpful and healthier. So I think our thoughts have a lot to do with our
Everything,
self-care.
everything
Yeah.
comes out of thoughts.
Shifts our perspective about everything.
It's what kind of pathway in life do I want to build? Do I want to carve? And my thoughts do that. The question is not what am I thinking, but what thoughts serve my life the best.
I think approaching things with curiosity is also a good way to practice self-care, because sometimes, especially when you're dealing with things, whether it's depression or anxiety or experiencing a traumatic experience that you don't want to, like Sarah was talking about, wanting to get out or wanting to do something, and so like something comes up, and whether it's a conversation or hanging out with friends or just going to the store, doing just everything, like day-to-day things, it could approaching it with a mindset of, oh, I've got to go to the store, this is going to be a drag, I don't want to get out, I don't want to do anything, I'd much rather just stay in bed. It's like approaching it with that kind of mindset, of course you're gonna have a horrible time, it's not going to be an enjoyable experience. But if you approach it with the mindset of, I wonder if I'll see anybody today, or I wonder if I wonder if they replaced that street light on, that street on the way there. I wonder if that's been fixed or if it's still glitching out, or, just kind of approaching things, even conversations. If you have a conversation coming up with someone that's not, maybe it could be like a difficult conversation, just like, I wonder what outcomes could come from this. Just approaching it with an attitude of curiosity rather than like dread and kind of, judgment. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
It can be a real big help with moving forward and actually shifting, like Mom was talking about, or like Debbie was talking about, shifting your mindset to a better perspective and kind of a more healthy perspective.
And
Sarah?
Sarah, go ahead. It's your turn.
Oh, okay. Well, kind of going off what I said before, we don't want to isolate, but also, we've talked about there's 6 areas here. Let me switch this. There's 6 areas of self-care. So there is social, cognitive, emotional, occupational, physical, and spiritual. And we've covered some of those already, actually. But for occupational, sometimes just getting out and doing your job can be difficult in the morning, especially if you've been through something traumatic or difficult. But we also have to remember we get to decide what value we give things. So if I, like Heather said, if I decide to get up and think, oh my gosh, I got to go to work again, this is going to be horrible, I wish I could just skip, maybe I'll take a sick day, all that kind of stuff. Instead, try to look at it as, I get another opportunity to do something today, whether it's something that I love or just something that's going to help me stay in my home, put food on the table. I get to do something meaningful today. So I'm going to do everything that I can in my power to do it to the best of my ability. And if those difficult, unhealthy thoughts come up, I'm not going to try to push them out of my head and avoid them. I'm going to actually think through them and decide, what, there's a better way. There's a more beneficial way for me to look at this. And usually the healthiest things that we do are the hardest things that we do. Becoming healthy is not an easy task.
And I would
Doc?
say the best thing that I did when one of the traumas I went through was my dad was killed in a work-related accident, was I didn't change anything. everything I was doing, I kept on doing the healthy stuff. So stop stopping. Stop stopping. Uh, Remember that the total number of people who have ever lived on the planet is estimated to be about, I think, about 100 billion. Minus the 8 billion alive currently on the planet, there are 92 billion people that have already passed beyond the little sliver of life that they had. Therefore, stop stopping and live your little sliver of life, because it'll be over before you know it. And so keep going. I love the Walt Disney quote. I've said it so much I should be able to have it memorized. But around here, Walt Disney said, however, we don't look backwards for very long. We keep moving forward, opening up new doors, doing new things, and curiosity keeps us leading down new paths. Keep going down new pathways. Stop stopping. Keep moving forward.
Yeah. It's like almost like the John Lennon quote from one of his songs, where he said that life is what happens while you're busy making plans.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, what advice would you give to people then if they wanted to start their own podcast?
Um, I think I have to
I,
choose the
it's
camera.
not showing up.
Oh,
I think
we're having
Debbie's
some
camera is.
technological difficulties. I would say that's one. Get ready for the technological difficulties.
Yes.
Don't catastrophize the technological difficulties. Another motto of mine is everything is figure outable. Everything is figure outable. Do your podcast with one person in mind, and realize the value if you only ever serve that one person and realize that's enough. That's what I would recommend.
Okay.
What about you guys? What are
Anybody
some
else got
top
any
tips?
advice?
Well, we're working in the background on Debbie's camera, which has decided to take a nap. And
I think another good way to look at it too is to have fun with it. If you look at it as a way of just it's one more thing to do, or there's a lot involved, and break it down into little pieces and have fun with it, because it is a fun experience. Being able to talk to people, whether you're doing it for just to make people laugh with comedy, or you're sharing your experiences, or having just to sit down with friends, or telling stories, or whatever you're wanting to do with it. Just make it to where you have fun with it, and that it's on something that that you're going to enjoy and that you're going to want to continue with, because there are kind of like Keith was saying, with technology difficulties. There's times when with editing you may lose footage, or things may update and change and it doesn't work right. There are little frustrating things that can happen throughout the whole experience. And if though that you're doing it to have fun with it, and that you're doing it for someone else and not just yourself, and you're doing it for people that also, even if it, like Dr. Keith was saying, one person that really get a lot out of it and really look forward to it that day, it kind of helps with the perspective of those things are, just part of the process.
Yep. So, Debbie,
I
any
would
suggestions for podcasters?
don't get discouraged and don't give up.
Yep.
Keep on keeping on. Because
well, or if you do get discouraged, stop and focus in on what thoughts are you having, which is creating what you're calling discouragement. Discouragement is based in cognitive distortions. Fix the distortion, the discouragement disappears. And for me, that's finding meaning in what you're doing in the moment. Mm-hmm. Finding meaning. There is meaning in the struggle. Mm-hmm. There's meaning in the struggle. Once you're okay with the struggle, burnout's not a thing. Pod fade's not a thing. Discouragement's not a thing. And do I get discouraged? Yes, I get discouraged. But then I focus in on what thoughts am I having that's creating that, and then I restructure those.
Has Debbie got any? I mean, not Debbie. I mean, has Sarah got any suggestions for podcasters?
Oh, I'm sure. Just keep going. So sometimes you are going to go blank. But if that happens, it's okay. Don't catastrophize it. Just, especially if it's not a live, you can cut those things. But if it is alive, that's okay. Go with it.
Be real.
Be real. Be a human. People forget things, and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, they're just as human as I am. And have fun with it.
Absolutely. You know, all this wordplay that you've all been doing today. I've already mentioned him once. You know, Dr. Seuss. So I'm going to say this one that I've always loved, this phrase, and I think it works wonderfully in this situation. Was it? Today you are you. That is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you.
I like that. I love that. That's awesome.
It's really
There we
good.
go. The wonderful wisdom of Dr. Seuss.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
He made me the
So,
little boy
where
at
can-
heart that I am
go on.
today.
Yes. The same. I mean, I have memories of being a child in the back of like a children's library, just sitting on the floor actually with Dr. Seuss books. You know, just enjoying them because there's something magical about the wordplay of his books and his artwork as well. I always found it interesting that him and Stan Lee were both in the same armed. Were in the same armed force around the same
wow.
time, and I
I
always
did not
thought
know
that was
that.
fascinating.
Wow.
That's really cool.
Wow.
That is cool.
They both surfed together, and I just find it amazing that how important they were to children with the work that they did, and they were both surfed together. I just found that fascinating.
Wow.
That's
Yes,
cool.
That's amazing. I did not know that.
Mm-mm.
So, where can people find the show, and how can they get hold of you?
Well, I think we are most everywhere. I would really appreciate you guys can give us a follow on Twitter. It is at therapy_bites, at therapy_bites. And on Instagram, it is doc.heath. And we're also on TikTok. You can look us up there. And gosh, what are we on TikTok? Oh, yeah, at therapy_bites. Same thing on TikTok. We're on Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio,
Stitcher.
all the
Stitcher.
yeah. Stitcher's going away.
Is it all?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going at the end of summer.
Yeah.
Darn.
Stitcher shall be no more. But until then,
Until
we
then.
are on Stitcher. We are on.
Amazon.
Amazon, Pandora.
Look us up on YouTube. We put out a lot of educational videos there that you won't find anywhere else on our YouTube channel, which is what?
At Therapy
At
Bites.
Therapy Bites.
But we're also Therapy Bites Art Lab.
Yeah.
Yes.
And look us up on there. If you have educational videos you'd like for us to produce, let us know something you want to learn. We'd be glad to do it. If you find value in what we're doing, you can thank us with a nice review.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you for today. This was great.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Well, thank you for having
Yes,
us.
it was
We would
fun.
love to do it again sometime. And keep up the great work. I think you're adding so much
Yes.
value. And I look forward to catching up with you on Twitter, which is where we first met.
It is. Anyway, you can find Pods Like Us on, well, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook, and we're available through podslikeus@gmail.com. Anyway, thank you everyone for listening, and hope you listen again to another episode of Pods Like Us.
Thanks.
We've
bye,
done it.
everybody.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.